There is something unsettling about the talks that happen without us, the ones that begin late at night, in quiet kitchens, on slow car rides, or during long phone calls when someone finally stops pretending to be fine. Those are the talks we were never supposed to hear. They happen between two people who trust each other, and one of those people is the one you love. In many ways, that is where the real truth lives. Not the polished truth people show in daylight, not the careful version shaped to look strong, calm, and in control. A different truth appears there, raw, unfiltered, heavy. It comes out when a person can no longer carry their feelings alone. Last night, your person had one of those moments, and what they let out says more about the real state of this connection than weeks of normal conversations ever could. There is an old idea in psychology that every person has a hidden side, a part full of fear, doubt, shame, and questions they do not want the world to see. Not because they are fake, but because they are scared those feelings will make them look weak, selfish, confused, or disloyal. Your person loves you. That is not the problem. But love does not silence fear. Sometimes it makes fear louder. The more someone matters, the more painful the thought of losing them becomes. The deeper the bond, the stronger the worry. So the hidden fears grow in the dark. Stay with me here because this changes everything. What they told their friend was not betrayal. It was emotional survival. People are not built to hold every fear inside forever. When your person sat there and finally spoke with a voice you rarely hear, they were doing something deeply human. They were letting the hidden parts speak, and what came out had something to do with age. But not age in the shallow way most people talk about it, not lines on a face, not grey hair, not a number on paper. The feeling underneath was deeper than that. It was fear tied to time itself. Fear of being in different places in life. Fear of wanting big things at different moments. Fear that two people can care for each other deeply and still wonder whether life will put distance between them. It was the quiet pressure that comes from loving someone while feeling unsure about what the future might do. Sometimes a person does not even realize why age feels so heavy in their chest. The truth is, it may not really be about you at all. It may be tied to their own relationship with time, their own questions about where they are, their own hopes, regrets, unfinished dreams, or the life story they thought they were supposed to follow. Society hands everyone a script. It tells us what love should look like. It tells us who fits together. It tells us when things should happen. It tells us what is normal. And the moment the heart moves outside those lines, tension appears. That tension is what broke open last night, and that is why this matters more than it seems. Because in that moment, the hidden wound got a shape. The fear became visible. The emotion finally found words. Listen carefully. Once fear has a name, it can no longer hide so easily. The real question is not whether this bond can survive what was revealed. The real question is whether both of you can face the truth without turning away. Can you hear fear without taking it as rejection? Can you meet vulnerability without becoming defensive? Can you stay present with discomfort instead of rushing to shut it down? Because what most people fear in love is not always the problem itself. Often what they fear most is what will happen if they speak the problem out loud. Deep down, many people believe that if they show someone their full truth, that person might leave. Last night, your person tested that fear with a trusted friend. The question now is whether they will ever feel safe enough to bring that same truth to you. And that is the deeper issue. It was never really about age. Age was only the surface. Underneath it was safety. Underneath it was the question of whether love could survive honesty. From childhood, people are taught that age is just a number, just a measure, just a category. But emotionally, age almost never feels that simple. It carries meaning. It carries pressure. It carries stories. It becomes tied to identity, to belonging, to whether our lives make sense in the eyes of other people. When your person cried, they were not crying over a number. They were crying over what that number has come to represent. A story about acceptance. A story about what love is supposed to look like. A story about whether they will be judged, questioned, or forced to explain something that feels natural in their own heart. And if you miss that part, you miss the truth of the whole moment. There is also a conflict inside every serious relationship between the self people show the world and the deeper self that lives underneath all performance. The outside self worries about appearance, judgment, approval, family opinions, questions from friends, and the comments that come from strangers who know nothing but still feel entitled to speak. The deeper self is quieter. It is more honest. It knows what it feels before the world gets involved. And this is likely the conflict your person has been carrying. The deeper part chose you. The deeper part feels something real, meaningful, and worth protecting. But the outer part is tired. It has to move through a world full of opinions. It has to answer questions. It has to survive awkward reactions. It has to deal with stares, side comments, fake concern, and the kind of advice that sounds gentle but feels like judgment. The world does not always make it easy to love outside its rules, and age differences often pull attention. People say things they should not say. They hide judgment inside polite words. They ask questions that are not really questions. Over time, your person has likely absorbed every silence, every raised eyebrow, every little moment that made them feel they had to defend something that felt pure to them. That is the weight they carried into that conversation. Not lack of love, not regret. Exhaustion. Simple, painful exhaustion. The exhaustion of holding what feels true inside while hearing the world tell them they should feel something else. That kind of inner split creates friction, quiet at first, then constant. And if it lasts long enough, it does not only create doubt, it creates sadness, it creates loneliness. Sometimes, it creates grief for a version of love that might have felt easier. This is important, because when we hear that someone we love cried over something connected to us, the first instinct is to make it personal. We assume it means regret. We assume it means they are pulling back. We imagine a door closing somewhere far away. But that reading misses something big. Grief and love are not opposites. Very often they live in the same room. The things people most want to keep are often the things that can make them cry. People do not break down over what they are ready to throw away. They break down over what matters deeply. The tears your person shed were not the tears of someone preparing to leave. They were the tears of someone fighting a battle in private, a battle you could not fully see. A battle about how to hold on to something precious while carrying a weight they never asked for. So what this moment asks for is not another shallow talk about age. It asks for a deeper talk about what age has come to mean inside this relationship. Where did the fear begin? What future are they actually afraid of? What ideas have they absorbed for years without questioning them? What story were they taught about relationships like yours? Did it come from family? From culture? From past pain? From old disappointments? From watching other people fail? These are uncomfortable questions, yes, but they are the only ones that lead toward real understanding. Reassurance alone is not healing. Saying everything will be okay does not touch the root. Healing begins when people become curious about the meaning underneath the fear. And if that meaning stays hidden, the fear stays alive. It just changes shape and returns later in silence, distance, tension, or slow emotional drift. There is another piece of this that many people do not notice right away, and it is the role of the third person, the friend, the listener, the trusted one who hears what has not yet been spoken inside the relationship. When your person turned to that friend, they were not simply venting. They were placing something heavy into someone else's hands for a moment because it had become too much to carry alone. And that matters, because feelings often become clearer the second another person reflects them back. A fear that once felt blurry suddenly gets sharper. An emotion that had no words suddenly gets language. A thought that lived quietly in the background can start to feel real and solid. Your person likely entered that talk carrying a cloud of confusion. They may have left carrying something more defined. The friend listened. The friend responded. The friend gave interpretations, and whether those interpretations were wise or not, they shaped how your person understood their own emotions. That is why these talks are powerful. They do not just express feelings, they also form them. And here is the uncomfortable part. Every friend already has opinions. Opinions about you, opinions about the relationship, opinions about what seems safe, risky, healthy, strange, wise, or complicated. Even kind people do this. It is human. So when your person arrived in pain, that friend may have tried to comfort first and reflect later. They may have validated the fear before fully examining it. That happens all the time. Protection often comes faster than perspective. And when a private fear gets social support, it can start to feel like fact. That does not mean the friend meant harm. It just means the conversation now has weight. That weight does not stay in the past. It follows your person into the present. The friend's voice can echo in small moments, in hesitation, in sudden doubt, in a long pause before answering, in the way they look away when thinking, in the silence you can feel but cannot explain. And the worst thing you can do is try to fight that influence head-on. Competing with it rarely works. Resenting it usually makes things worse. The healthier move is harder. You become the most trustworthy voice in the room, not through pressure, not through arguments, not through endless promises, but through consistency, through calm, through honesty, through emotional safety. You build the kind of bond where painful truths do not have to travel somewhere else before they can be spoken. You create a space where fear can come into the open without being punished, where uncertainty is not treated like betrayal, where difficult emotions do not threaten the whole connection. The goal is not to erase fear. No real relationship can do that. The goal is to create enough trust that fear no longer has to hide. The friend may have reflected the anxiety, but only your lived presence can show what is true over time. Not your speeches, not your perfect words, your actions, your steadiness, your way of showing up again and again. Because emotional reactions fade, opinions fade, one late-night conversation fades, but experience stays. What is lived together becomes stronger than what was guessed in private. And if you understand this, you stop asking, "How do I beat the doubt?" and start asking, "How do I become a place where doubt no longer needs to whisper from the shadows?" That shift changes everything. And if you are still listening, hold on, because this next part may explain the silence you have already felt. There is a kind of silence that exists inside close relationships that is not peaceful at all. It looks calm on the surface, but underneath it is full of words that never came out. Thoughts without language, feelings without a safe exit. You have probably felt this before. Maybe there was a moment when something flashed across your person's face and disappeared before you could name it. A flicker of sadness, a brief look of worry, a small withdrawal that seemed too quick to question. Maybe there were days when they felt slightly farther away, maybe not cold, not distant in some dramatic way, just different enough for your heart to notice. You may have told yourself it was stress. You may have blamed a long day, a bad mood, too much thinking, too little sleep. And sometimes that is true. But sometimes that silence is not empty at all. Sometimes it is packed with fear, love, confusion, and questions that a person does not know how to speak without shaking the ground under their own feet. That is what makes silence so hard to read. From the outside, it looks like distance. From the inside, it can be a storm. A person can sit next to you and still be trapped in a private battle between what they feel and what they fear. They can love you deeply and still go quiet because they do not know how to say what is hurting them without sounding unfair, without sounding confused, without sounding like they are doubting the relationship, when the truth is, they are only doubting their ability to carry the pressure around it. And this is where people often get it wrong. They react to silence as if silence is rejection. They demand quick answers. They push for clarity before the other person has found the words. They treat every pause like a warning sign. But not every pause means love is fading. Sometimes a pause means emotion is looking for safe ground. Sometimes it means the truth is still trying to form. Sometimes it means your person is scared that if they say everything exactly as they feel it, they might be misunderstood, and that risk feels bigger than the pain of staying quiet for one more night. Think about that. A person can remain silent not because they care less, but because they care so much that saying the wrong thing feels dangerous. That is why patience matters here. Real patience. Not passive waiting filled with secret resentment, but calm, steady presence. The kind that says, without pressure, I can handle the truth when you are ready. I am not here only for the easy version of you. I am here for the complicated version too. And that changes the whole emotional climate. Because once a person stops feeling that honesty will destroy love, honesty slowly becomes possible. Stay with this, because the next part is where everything turns. What your person needs most may not be perfect reassurance. It may not be grand promises. It may not even be a long emotional speech. What they may need most is proof, repeated quietly over time, that hard feelings can exist in this relationship without breaking it, that fear can be spoken without punishment, that confusion can be shared without being turned into a fight, that vulnerability does not automatically become damage. Many people grow up believing that love should make things simple, but real love does not always simplify life. Sometimes it makes life more real. It shines light on every hidden fear because now there is finally something precious enough to lose. That is why deep love can bring up deep anxiety. Not because something is wrong, but because something matters. Your person may be grieving the fact that this love, beautiful as it is, has asked them to be stronger than they expected. They may be grieving the easy version they imagined love was supposed to be. The version that did not need explaining. The version that did not have to stand against opinions, timelines, questions, and pressure from the outside world. That grief does not cancel love. It sits beside it. And if you understand that, you stop taking every hard emotion as a verdict against the relationship. You start seeing it as part of the weight the relationship has been forced to carry. Here is the truth most people miss. The problem is not that fear exists. The problem is when fear has nowhere honest to go, then it hides. Then it leaks out in strange ways, in distance, in sharp reactions, in overthinking, in mood shifts that make no sense on the surface, in moments where one person feels unloved while the other person is actually overwhelmed. This is why emotional safety matters more than winning any argument about whether the fear is rational. Even if the fear makes no sense to you, the feeling is still real inside them. And feelings do not calm down because they are told to be logical. They calm down when they are understood, named, and held without shame. If your person has been carrying this in silence, then the greatest gift now is not force. It is space with warmth in it, space that does not abandon, space that does not accuse, space that quietly says, you do not have to solve your whole heart before speaking to me. And if you can create that, something powerful happens. Fear starts to lose its need for secrecy. And once secrecy fades, closeness has room to grow again. So if you feel the distance, do not rush to write the ending in your mind. Do not turn one hidden struggle into a final story about loss. This may not be the beginning of the end. It may be the beginning of something more honest than what came before. Because relationships do not deepen only through romance, chemistry, and beautiful moments. They deepen when two people learn how to stand inside discomfort without running. They deepen when hidden fears are finally allowed into the light, and neither person uses them as a weapon. They deepen when silence is met with steadiness, when tears are met with understanding, when truth is met with enough softness that it does not have to disguise itself anymore. Your person's tears were not proof that love is weak. They were proof that love is carrying something heavy, and heavy things need care, not panic. If you want to change what happens next, focus less on defending the relationship with words and more on building it with experience. Be the place where honesty feels safer than hiding. Be the person who can hear the hard thing without making it harder. Be the calm that does not flinch the moment fear walks into the room. Because in the end, love is not tested by how perfect it looks when everything is easy. It is tested by what happens when the hidden truth finally speaks. And if that truth is met with patience, courage, and real emotional safety, then the very thing that once felt threatening can become the doorway to a deeper bond. That is the part no one tells you. Sometimes the crack in the surface is not where everything falls apart. Sometimes it is where real intimacy begins. And if you have felt in your gut that something deeper has been happening all along, you were probably right. Not because love was gone, but because love was trying to survive under pressure. So do not only ask whether they are scared, ask whether they feel safe. Do not only ask whether they are unsure, ask whether they feel free to be honest. Those questions reach deeper, those questions open doors, and sometimes one safe conversation can heal what months of silence slowly built. If that conversation comes, do not waste it. Listen closely, stay steady, and let the truth breathe. Because when truth finally feels safe, love stops spending all its strength on hiding. It can begin using that strength to build, to heal, to choose again with open eyes instead of silent fear. And maybe that is what this moment has really been about from the start. Not a warning, not an ending, a turning point. A quiet chance for two people to stop protecting the relationship through silence and start protecting it through honesty. If that happens, the pain of this night will not have been meaningless. It will have revealed the one thing every deep connection needs most: a safe place for the heart to speak.